My fiancé's family laughed when I paid for our extravagant vacation with my inheritance, calling me their personal ATM. I smiled and said, "Glad I can help." The next morning, they woke up to find me, their luggage, and their passports gone. 72 hours later, my phone was flooded with desperate messages begging me. I am sitting in a hotel room that costs more per night than my first car. The silence is the most expensive thing in here, and it is worth every penny. 3 days ago, that silence was filled with the sound of my fiancée and her family laughing at my expense. Now, their panicked messages are the only noise, and I am letting them echo into the void. My name is Leo, I am 31, and for the last 4 years I have been engaged to a woman named Qley. I own a small logistics company that I built from the ground up. It is not glamorous, but it is mine, and it does well. Qley, on the other hand, comes from a family that values appearances above all else. Her father, Marcus, is a retired sales executive who still talks about his commission checks from 1998. Her mother, Eleanor, volunteers for charities mainly for the photo opportunities. And her brother, Julian, sells luxury cars and has an ego as inflated as his monthly lease payments. They have always treated me with a kind of polite disdain, like a piece of furniture that is useful but does not quite match the decor. I was the steady one, the reliable one, the guy who could fix their Wi-Fi and pay for dinner without making a scene. They called me their rock, but I was more like their doormat. I paid for Qley to get her master's degree, covered the down payment on Julian's must-have condo when his credit was shot, and co-signed a loan for Marcus to invest in a friend's surefire business venture that, predictably, went nowhere. I did it because I loved Qley, and I thought this was what you did for family. The final act of my stupidity began 6 months ago. My grandmother passed away and left me a significant inheritance. It was not life-changing money for a billionaire, but for a guy like me, it was a safety net for the rest of my life. I told Qley, of course, and her family's interest in me suddenly became much less polite and much more enthusiastic. Suddenly, they started talking about a proper family vacation. Not our usual weekend trips to a lake house, but a real, once-in-a-lifetime getaway. They settled on a 2-week trip to a 5-star resort in Thailand, a place with private villas, infinity pools, and a price tag that made my eyes water. Qley insisted it would be the perfect way to celebrate us and to finally feel like a real family. I knew what was happening. My inheritance was burning a hole in their pockets, but I agreed. I told myself it was a small price to pay for harmony, a way to finally earn their respect. So I booked the whole thing. 4 first-class tickets, 2 adjoining private villas, the works. The total cost was enough to buy a small house in some parts of the country. We arrived 3 days ago, and it was exactly as luxurious as they had imagined. They were in heaven. Julian immediately started posting pictures on social media, tagging the resort and using hashtags like blessed and living the dream. Marcus spent the first afternoon ordering the most expensive champagne on the menu, clapping me on the back and calling me a prince. The moment it all shattered happened on that first night. We were at the resort's fanciest restaurant, a place with a view of the ocean that looked like a postcard. The bill came, and it was astronomical. I placed my credit card on the little black tray without flinching. As the waiter walked away, Marcus raised his glass. "A toast," he said, his voice loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "To Leo, the man, the myth, the personal ATM." Eleanor and Julian roared with laughter. Qley just giggled, covering her mouth as she looked at me, her eyes sparkling with amusement, not apology. "Oh, Dad, be nice," she said, but she was laughing too. Julian chimed in. "Seriously, man, we could not have done this without you. It is nice to have a walking wallet in the family." Something inside me just snapped. It was not a loud crack, but a quiet, cold severance. All the years of subtle insults, the constant financial demands, the feeling of being tolerated but never truly accepted, it all coalesced into a single moment of perfect, horrifying clarity. They did not see me as a son-in-law or a future husband. They saw me as a resource, an ATM, a walking wallet. I smiled. It was the best performance of my life. I raised my own glass. "Glad I can help," I said, my voice perfectly even. "That is what family is for, right?" They all nodded, satisfied with my response, and went back to their desserts. But I was already gone. My mind was racing, formulating a plan with a speed and precision that would have impressed a military general. I excused myself from the table, claiming I needed to make a quick work call. In the lobby, I approached the concierge. I explained that there was a family emergency back home and that I needed to arrange a flight out for myself first thing in the morning. I also asked for a hotel car to pick me up at 5 a.m. Then, I went back to the table and played the part of the doting fiancé for the rest of the evening. Later that night, while they were all asleep, I moved with quiet efficiency. I went into their villa. They had left the adjoining door unlocked, of course, because why would they worry about security when their ATM was next door? I gathered their 4 passports from the desk where Qley had left them in a neat pile. I took the cash from their wallets, leaving the plastic. Then, I took their luggage. All of it. The big suitcases, the carry-ons, everything. I carried it all to the lobby, where I explained to the night manager that my family had a sudden change of plans and needed their luggage stored securely until they could arrange for it to be shipped. I paid a generous fee for the service, ensuring it would be kept safe and out of their reach. At 5 a.m., my car arrived. I took one last look at the beautiful resort, the symbol of my own foolishness, and drove to the airport. I used my new ticket to fly not home, but to Singapore, a city I had always wanted to see. As soon as I landed, I checked into this hotel, blocked their numbers, and turned off all my social media notifications. I knew the chaos would begin when they woke up to find me gone. It would escalate when they realized their passports and luggage were also missing. The real panic would set in when they tried to check out and discovered the hold I had placed on my credit card was only for the first 2 nights. I have been here for 3 days now, exploring the city, eating amazing food and feeling a sense of freedom I have not felt in years. This morning, out of curiosity, I unblocked their numbers for a few minutes. My phone immediately flooded with messages, dozens of them. Missed calls, frantic texts, angry voicemails. They have gone from confusion to rage to full-blown panic. They are stranded in a foreign country with no passports, no luggage, and a hotel bill that is growing by the hour. And their personal ATM is officially out of service. Update 1. It has been a week since I left them in Thailand. Thank you for the overwhelming support. Reading your comments has been incredibly validating. For those asking for details, the last 7 days have been a masterclass in watching consequences unfold from a very comfortable distance. After my initial 72 hours of silence in Singapore, I decided I needed a more structured way to manage the situation. The constant stream of messages was becoming a distraction. I bought a cheap, local SIM card for my personal use and kept my old number active on a spare phone, which I now refer to as the chaos phone. I check it once a day, usually with a good cup of coffee in hand. The first few days of messages were exactly what you would expect. They were a mix of anger and confusion. From Marcus, Leo, this is not funny. Call us immediately. The hotel is asking questions. From Julian, dude, where are you? And where is my suitcase? I have a new Rolex in there. If it is gone, you are a dead man. From Qley, Leo, I am scared. What is going on? Did something happen to you? Please just tell me you are okay. Her feigned concern was almost insulting. I did not respond to any of them. Instead, I made a few strategic moves. I called my bank and explained the situation. I reported the credit cards they had, the supplementary ones on my account, as stolen. This was not technically a lie, as my trust had certainly been stolen. This action immediately cut off their access to any of my funds. Then I contacted the hotel in Thailand. I spoke to the general manager, a very professional woman named Mrs. Chen. I explained that I had a falling out with my travel companions and that I would not be returning or covering any further expenses. I authorized the payment for the first 2 nights, as I had stayed there, but made it clear that the rest of their stay, plus any room service or damages, was their responsibility. I also informed her that I had left their passports and luggage in the hotel's care for safekeeping. Mrs. Chen was very understanding, especially when I hinted at a situation involving financial exploitation. She assured me the items were secure and would only be released upon my direct authorization or through official diplomatic channels. The tone of the messages on the chaos phone changed dramatically after that. The confusion was replaced with pure, undiluted panic. From Eleanor, Leo, They have cut off our room service. The manager said you are not paying. This has to be a mistake. Please fix this. From Qley. My card was just declined at the gift shop. Leo. What did you do? My father is furious. You are embarrassing us. The shift from I am worried about you to you are embarrassing us was swift and telling. Her true concern was never for my well-being, but for her social standing and comfort. The best message came from Marcus. It was a long, rambling voicemail. He swung wildly from threatening legal action to practically begging. He talked about his reputation, about how he had important people to impress, and how this was ruining his image. He demanded I wire them money immediately so they could at least get home. He seemed to have forgotten that getting home requires passports. I spent my days in Singapore being a tourist. I visited the gardens by the bay, ate at hawker centers, and walked for miles. For the first time in years, I was spending my money on myself, and it felt incredible. I was not funding someone else's degree or bailing out a bad investment. I was investing in my own peace of mind. Yesterday, I received an email from the U.S. Embassy in Thailand. It was a generic message forwarded at the request of 4 American citizens who were seeking assistance. They had reported their passports as misplaced and were trying to get temporary travel documents. The process, as I know from a quick search online, is a bureaucratic nightmare. It requires proof of identity, proof of citizenship, and a lot of waiting. All of their proof was in their luggage, which was securely stored under my name. I replied to the embassy email, stating that I was the individual who had arranged the trip, and that, due to a severe personal conflict and concerns about their intentions, I had left their documents and belongings with the hotel for their own security. I explained that I would be happy to authorize the release of their belongings to an embassy official, but not to them directly. I was being helpful. You see, this morning, the Chaos phone had a new series of messages. They have clearly been to the embassy and have been informed of the situation. They now know that their passports are not lost, but are being held. They know that I am the one who holds the key. From Qley. Leo, this is insane. The embassy said you have our passports. This is illegal. You are holding us hostage. I am calling a lawyer. From Julian. I am going to destroy you for this. You have no idea who you are messing with. The threats were empty, and they knew it. I had not stolen anything. I had secured it. I had not abandoned them. I had simply stopped paying. Every action I took was a direct and logical consequence of their own behavior. They called me an ATM, so I shut down the machine. They treated me like a wallet, so I took my wallet and walked away. I have booked a flight to Vietnam for tomorrow. I hear Hanoi is beautiful this time of year. I will keep checking the Chaos phone, of course. This is better than any television show. Update 2. It has been 2 weeks since this all began. I am currently in Hanoi, and the city is as chaotic and beautiful as I had hoped. The Chaos phone, however, has entered a new and much more interesting phase. The initial panic has subsided and has been replaced by desperation and a series of hilariously misguided attempts at manipulation. After my last update, I followed through on my promise to the embassy. I sent a notarized email to Mrs. Chen at the Thai resort, authorizing her to release all luggage and the 4 passports to a designated official from the U.S. Embassy. I was not going to be accused of theft or of holding them hostage. I was simply a concerned citizen ensuring a secure chain of custody. This act of cooperation sent them into a new spiral. They got their belongings back, but the process took another 2 days. 2 more days of hotel bills they could not pay. I learned from a very discreet follow-up call with Mrs. Chen that Marcus had tried to use his reputation to get them to waive the fees. He apparently told her he was a very important person in the American business community. She informed him that at her resort, the only important people were the ones who paid their bills. With their passports in hand, their next hurdle was a flight home. First-class tickets were, of course, out of the question. They had to scramble, pooling the cash I had left them with whatever credit they had left on their own cards. I know for a fact that Julian's and Qley's cards are always near their limits. The messages during this period were a goldmine of entitlement. From Eleanor. Leo, we are stuck in economy class for a 17-hour flight. My back is already hurting. This is inhumane. From Julian. I had to sell my Rolex to a pawn shop at the airport to pay for my ticket. You will be hearing from my lawyer about this. That was a collector's item. The fact that he had a multi-$1,000 watch, but apparently no savings for an emergency plane ticket, tells you everything you need to know about their financial planning. But the real drama began when they landed back in the United States. They came home not to a contrite fiancé ready to be forgiven, but to a series of unpleasant and entirely logical consequences. First, the condo. Julian's condo, the one I helped him get, had a major plumbing leak while he was away. The downstairs neighbor had been trying to reach him for days. Since Julian was not responding, the building management had called the emergency contact on file, me. I had calmly informed them that I was merely a co-signer on a loan, not the resident, and that they should contact the owner directly. I did not, of course, mention that he was on a trip he could not afford. The result was a flooded apartment, a furious neighbor, and an emergency repair bill that was now Julian's sole responsibility. Next, the business venture. Marcus's surefire investment. The friend he had invested with called me, panicking. The business was failing, and the bank was calling in the loan that I had co-signed. Before I left for Thailand, I had my lawyer draft a letter removing myself as a guarantor, citing a material change in my financial relationship with Marcus. The letter was sent the day after I left. The bank, seeing the instability, had accelerated their demand for payment from Marcus. He was now on the hook for the entire amount, alone. But the main event was, of course, Qley. She arrived back at our apartment to find the locks changed. I had hired a security company to pack up every single one of her belongings. Every piece of clothing, every book, every photo. It was all professionally boxed and sent to a climate-controlled storage unit. The first month was paid for. After that, it was her problem. Her key not working was the final, irreversible signal that the game was over. The messages on the chaos phone became a torrent of pure, unfiltered rage, followed by the predictable, tearful pleas. From Qley, "You threw my things into storage like trash after everything we had? I hate you." An hour later, "Leo, please, I made a mistake. I was stupid. My family, they get in my head. But I love you. We can fix this. Just let me come home." And the kicker, I am at my parents' house. It is awful. Julian is yelling at everyone, and my father will not stop talking about his lawyers. I cannot live like this. I need you. You are my rock. They had used that word again, rock. The thing they all stood on, the thing they took for granted, the thing they never once thought might move. Her parents' home was no longer the comfortable sanctuary she remembered. With Marcus facing a massive debt and Julian dealing with a ruined apartment, the atmosphere there was, according to a mutual friend I spoke with, absolutely toxic. The money had dried up, and so had their civility. I have not responded to a single message. My silence is my power. They expected me to yell, to argue, to negotiate. They have no idea how to deal with a man who simply walks away. They thought they were playing a game of chess, but I just knocked the whole board over. Yesterday, I got an email from a lawyer representing Qley. It was a blustering, threatening letter demanding access to the apartment, financial support, and compensation for emotional distress. My lawyer, a sharp woman who finds this entire situation highly amusing, responded with a single paragraph. She stated that since we were not married, Qley had no legal claim to my property or income, and that any further attempts at intimidation would be met with a restraining order. The fallout is just beginning. They are all living under one roof, trapped in a mess of their own creation, with their financial and social lives crumbling around them. And me? I am in Hanoi, eating pho for breakfast and planning a trip to Ha Long Bay. They called me their ATM. It turns out they never once thought to check the balance. Final update. It has been 3 months since I walked away from that dinner in Thailand. I am back in the United States, but my life looks nothing like it did before. The chaos phone has fallen silent. The storm has passed, and I am left surveying the wreckage, none of which is my own. After 2 months of traveling through Southeast Asia, a journey of self-discovery funded by what I now call the Family Vacation Refund, I came home. I sold the apartment I had shared with Qley. There were too many ghosts there. I bought a smaller place for myself, closer to my business, and I have been focusing on my work and my own well-being. So, what happened to Qley and her family? The story does not end with a dramatic courtroom showdown or a tearful reunion. It ends, as these things often do, with the quiet, grinding reality of consequences. Marcus was unable to pay back the loan for his failed business venture. The bank sued him, and he was forced to declare bankruptcy. His reputation as a savvy businessman was shattered. He and Eleanor had to sell their large, impressive house and move into a small rental. The shame, from what I have heard, has been devastating for them. Eleanor is no longer a prominent figure on the charity circuit. It is hard to organize galas when you are trying to figure out how to pay for groceries. Julian's life also took a nosedive. The water damage to his condo was extensive, and his insurance refused to cover all of it, citing negligence. He could not afford the repairs or the legal battle with his downstairs neighbor. He ended up in a fire sale, losing a significant amount of money and destroying his credit. He lost his job at the luxury car dealership because, as it turns out, you cannot sell a high-end lifestyle when yours has publicly imploded. Last I heard, he was living with his parents in their small rental and working a commission-only job selling solar panels. And Qley. Her story is the one that is both the most predictable and the most tragic. After her lawyer's threats went nowhere, she tried a different tactic. She launched a smear campaign against me on social media. She wrote long, vague posts about being abandoned by a man she had given her best years to. She painted me as a cold, cruel monster who had left her stranded and homeless. It did not work. I had been silent, but I was not idle. I had shared the full story, complete with screenshots of their personal ATM comments and Julian's social media posts from the trip, with a few key mutual friends. The truth spread quickly. People saw her narrative for what it was: a desperate attempt by a guilty person to play the victim. Her social media campaign backfired spectacularly, and she ended up looking manipulative and dishonest. She eventually had to retrieve her things from the storage unit. She is now living with her parents and working as a paralegal, her dreams of a high-powered legal career indefinitely on hold. The final, pathetic climax came about a month ago. I received a letter from her, not an email or a text, but a handwritten letter. It was a long, rambling apology. She wrote that she knew she had made a terrible mistake, that she had been blinded by her family's materialism, and that she truly loved me. She said she was a different person now, and asked if I would be willing to meet for coffee, just to talk. For a moment, a very small part of me felt a flicker of the old affection. But then I remembered that night in the restaurant, the laughter, the casual cruelty in their eyes, the chilling realization that my love for them was just a commodity to be exploited. I did not write back. I did not call. I simply took the letter, folded it neatly, and put it in a box with the other relics of my old life. Some things, once broken, cannot be fixed. And some people, once they show you who they really are, should be believed the first time. The revenge was not in leaving them stranded. It was not in the financial fallout or their social ruin. The true revenge was in my silence. It was in my refusal to engage, to argue, to be the villain in their story or the savior they so desperately needed. I simply removed myself from the equation. I was the ATM they took for granted, and my revenge was to show them the value of something priceless: my presence, my support, and my love. And now they know what it is like to have an account that is permanently closed. I am free, and for the first time in a long time, my life is my own. The silence is no longer just in my hotel room, it is in my soul. And it's peaceful.